Dara Randall is a multifaceted healer who's releasing a poetry book called Rehab For Love, which skillfully intertwines a self-help workbook with a poignant narrative. And Dara is with us here. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking.
So, what was it that inspired you to write Rehab For Love?
So it started off as a poetry book, and then I sent my poetry book out to beta readers, and the feedback I got was that they could relate to every word, and a lot of the poetry was on narcissism abuse. And that they could relate to every word, but that I just kind of leave them in the that I was leaving them in the feeling of the experience. So because I'm a neurolinguistic programming practitioner and I have a lot of different healing certifications, I decided to also make it into a self-help book so that I'm giving them tools. So it starts off as poetry, and then I give individuals tools to help heal the specific poetry chapters.
And how did your personal experiences or observations lead you to explore the connection between unhealthy love and substance abuse?
So there was an experience that I had where an individual, and I write about this in the book, an individual invited me to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and at the time I was like, I felt like a fraud. Like I don't know about supporting you and going to this meeting to support you because I don't have an addiction like this. I'm not addicted to any drugs. So I went anyway. My original thought was that it would be as if somebody is on like the cold hard, bearing their cold hard truth in front of me, and I would be like a mortician looking at it and being like, yeah, that sounds like it'd kill you, like you just, of course, like you doing a lot of drugs would do this to your life. But what ended up happening when I went is I had the opposite reaction. It was more like, all right, I've done worse for love. Like, okay, you've given everything, you've become homeless, you've done all these things for a drug, but at least you got a drug out of it. I was just looking for I love you too, like so by the end of it, I was like, wow, these stories were actually far more relatable than I was expecting them to be. And I looked into like what is love addiction, and it's really just it's chasing love, forgetting that you are love. It's utilizing love as a form of drug. So essentially, I came to the understanding that I was using love as the drug versus like a deeper connection and relating and reflection of self. I was treating it as if it was essentially cocaine or any other type of drug.
How do you think recognizing that similarity between love addiction and drug addiction can help people overcome unhealthy relationships?
I think recognizing that drug addiction is also very similar to love addiction in the sense that like being codependent, you could replace that with a drug or you could replace that with a person. It's not really about the object itself, it's your relationship to it. One of the poems I have, or one of the things I talked about is, it's not about the fact that this thing is poison. You keep saying this thing is poison and it's poisoning you. The real question is, why do you keep drinking down the bottle? Why do you keep intaking it? What is it? What is happening for you? What is that relationship that is happening for you that is making you want to keep chasing it or go after it or ingest it, whichever it is, if it's a person or a drug? The similarity is that it's replaceable. It doesn't really matter. It's interchangeable. It's the relationship itself that you're having to it. One of the things that I also talk about is how we are mostly made of water, and we keep needing more water to hydrate ourselves, but we forget that we are also water. And while we desire love and we keep going after love, we also forget that we are love. So the difference is that we can hydrate ourselves within ourselves. So there's like a never-ending flow within us that we can keep accessing.
The book actually explores the allure of falling into a narcissistic relationship. So what is it that's so captivating about those relationships, yet destructive?
So the book starts off with the love illusion. So it starts off with kind of this firework, this feeling of excitement and just falling into the limerence of it, really is what it's referred to, or the fantasy bond. So I talk a lot about fantasy bonding and recognizing when you're bonding with the fantasy of an individual, that fantasy that they've either laid out or that you've completely created for them. And yeah, essentially I could say one of my poems right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're or what you would like, but yeah.
Well, certainly that would be good for an example.
Okay. So this is a poem that's kind of what one of these type of relationships kind of look like or sound like. So this one's called Fireworks, and it's in the book. Okay. Lying in your arms, I looked you in the eyes and said, baby, tell me something about yourself. And you in your smug little way said, no, because I'm like an onion. You've got to go through layers to get to me, and I want to make you jump through hoops. And I'm thinking, shoot, you're like an onion? That means the deeper I go, the more you're going to make me cry and be sitting there with a bucket of ice cream trying to put the closest thing I can find to an ice pack for my bruised and broken heart. Why can't you be something sweet, like a banana or a peach? Because I could definitely see you as a kiwi, a little fuzzy on the outside, soft and mushy on the inside, no core in the center. So I don't feel like I have to go through a bunch of sweet nonsense to get to something I feel is real. And yeah, you could be a little bit seedy, but hell, we all have our seeds. And you're just obsessed with that tomato. How it could be both fruit and vegetable, because you never want to stick to one form and you always wanted something more. Babe, just tell me a story. No, not until I know that you like me for me or not me for this. You for you or you for this. Not until I know that you love me for me and not me for love. And you're starting to render a poet speechless because inside screaming, babe, you're like fireworks to me. I'm always in awe of how bright you are and how you can just burst onto the scene or twirl around the corner silently, but everyone knows you're there and you're like a visual symphony to me. I just wish you'd play on the ground with me because I just want you to be floored by me, but you're too busy being so high all the time, getting faded, and it's a little bit jaded how you just want to disappear with the night. And this firecracking beam of light poking holes at the sky, and I just want to hold on to you, and I know that it'll burn, but hell, we all just want to feel fireworks.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff, isn't it? It's not just the words, I suppose, but it's the emotion in yourself when you're reading this.
Yeah, it's meant to be a dual processing system so that you are experiencing it emotionally and then being able to heal it logically. So you've got the emotions and the logic with the book.
So how do you think your book guides readers towards recognizing and breaking free from these patterns?
So the self-help section has like what healthy looks like and what unhealthy, like some healthy and unhealthy examples. I also have journaling. I also have formulas, like emotional formulas, like if then this. Like getting my book right now just to like have the actual examples in front of me to give you. But yeah, so there's a lot of different tools to utilize in this book. Let me give an example of. So a love bomb is intense and immediate affection, while healthier love is a little bit steadier and sustainable. It's gradual and you have time to build trust and emotional connection that grows, as opposed to a love bomb, which is overwhelming displays of affection, love right from the beginning of the relationship. Flattery and versus compliments of healthier love, just that it can be a little bit murky to decide to kind of go through what is a healthy flattery, what is more of a love bombing flattery. So I have examples of that within the book.
And have you actually received any feedback or testimonials from readers who have maybe undergone a transformation themselves after reading Rehab for Love?
Some of the poems in particular, readers have reached out to me and talked to me about how their personal stories and how it's affected them. I've gotten a lot of just even sending it out to beta readers at the beginning of my launch was really impactful because I had a lot of people talking to me about these deep traumas that occurred to them through their abusive relationships. And I wasn't necessarily expecting that with the beta readers. I was expecting like other types of feedback, but it was really profound for me to hear individuals' personal stories and journeys that was brought up for them when they read the book. And I have one poem about how to recognize when you're bleeding, essentially like, hey, somebody is stabbing you. Recognize first you have to address that you're bleeding instead of trying to be like, hey, why'd you stab me? Why are you injuring me over and over again? You have to recognize first, like, hey, you're being injured and maybe you need to distance yourself from the situation.
Yeah.
And the analogy of that particular poem, I got a lot of feedback of people being like, oh, wow, like I didn't think to kind of recognize when I need to distance myself, or that distancing myself is the most important thing to do, rather than coming back and picking at the wound and being like, why am I bleeding? And like, so those are some feedbacks that I've gotten from readers thus far.
If there's somebody listening right now who might be struggling in their own journeys of love and healing, what words of encouragement or advice would you leave with them?
I would really question why you keep going back to it and what you feel like you need there. I would also like to say that one of the roles of like this whole narcissistic empath relationship is to give the empath an understanding of where they should have boundaries and where they should also like love themselves there. So it's a journey of self-love. And I know that a lot of individuals who go through this type of relationship are like, why is this person so cruel? Why is this person? But understand that this person is cruel to everyone. Why did you let them in? And that's the space in which you need to heal, is the boundaries in which you're letting that in.
Now, how do you envision the conversation around toxic love addiction evolving in the future, and how do you think your book will contribute to this potential shift?
At least in Western culture, there has been a massive rise in, at least from one study that I saw, that there's over 80 million people going to therapy over dealing with different types of personality disorders. So it's just like, I don't put in the book necessarily that's narcissism, but it is dealing with somebody who is like so selfish. And so it's dealing with individuals that are so selfish that they can't see that they're destroying other people. And that's becoming more and more prevalent in our society. And like any resource, all resources, I'm seeing that, looking at analytics, that there's over 1 million people looking for resources per month on how to heal from this type of abuse. So yeah, I think that even if it's just a pebble stone in all the resources that exist, this might help one person, or this might help somebody. This might be a tool to help a certain type of individual. And I think there needs to be hundreds and hundreds of tools, because there's becoming millions and millions of people who are going through it.
Now, this book at the moment is, of course, called Rehab for Love, but are you working on any more books after this?
Yeah, so the next one I am doing a sequel. So this one's Through the Reflection. And so I've had it as like my own kind of mirror, like you're healing through being a mirroring somebody else. The next one is going to be Toolbox, where it's mainly going to focus on just different types of tools to help you heal different types of addiction or love abuse. So, Toolbox is going to be the sequel, and I'm also going to work on just a workbook. So that's just going to be, if somebody just wants to work on the logical side and not have like the poetry aspect of it, I'm working on a book just for that as well.
Excellent. Well, where are we able to find this current book, Rehab for Love?
Currently, you can find Rehab for Love on Amazon or on Goodreads. But yeah, you can find it on Amazon currently.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for joining us today. It's been great having you here.
Thank you so much.